All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, we are celebrating 4 years of doing the podcast. And I believe this is episode 347. That is completely wild. So we have a special episode for you. All right. Welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. I'm your show host, Maxime, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, a company that is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce their risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. I believe that having a fit, healthy body and mind is the foundation to living an incredible life, and this is what the show will give you if you choose to listen and implement. Enjoy the episode and have a great day. We're going over some of the top guests that we've had on the show throughout the years and many of our Fit Vegan success story. So buckle in, grab your popcorn, and let's enjoy the ride here. So, I started this podcast in November of 2020. I can't believe that it's already been 4 years. You know what? Actually, before I dive into that, if you're watching on YouTube, can we appreciate the set that I'm on? I am currently in Canada recording in my parents' basement in their home gym. So I found a way to make it look really nice for the episode. And so hope you appreciate the background, the effort that went into it. After this clip, I'm actually going to go get a workout because as you can see, they have quite a nice setup here with a power rack. There's even a cable machine on the left side here with some dumbbells going from 5 pounds all the way to up to 70 pounds. So they have quite a nice setup at this point. So let's go back into the podcast. I started this podcast in November 2020. The only reason that I started it is because my original mentor told me that I should start a podcast. And that's when I was originally starting Fit Vegan Coaching. And whatever he told me to do, I just did it without question. And so he told me to start a podcast and I started recording with the microphone from my laptop. We didn't do video at the time. It was simply audio just because I wasn't all this techie with all the lights and the different types of cameras and lenses and all of that. And so I originally started just with what I had access to, which was when I was living in Vancouver and still taking care of my late partner at the time. So I used the microphone from my laptop. I recorded a few episodes. I don't know if our editor can put a clip from the first episode to hear the difference in audio between now and between then. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. I just want to make this a little introduction to everyone that's going to be tuning in. My name is Lucky Sigoy. I'm the founder of Fit Vegan Coaching and the creator of the Fit Vegan Blueprint program, where I help vegans thrive, get lean on a whole food, plant-based diet. But there is a massive difference, and as we kind of progress along, I just wanted to share my message with the world. I wanted to share tips and pieces of advice that would be able to help people in their transformation. There's just so much happening. I really want to build a massive community of fit vegans that can support each other and help each other out and share recipes and share what their journey has been like, and in the hopes that it helps other people go vegan. Really want to be able to build that platform. And eventually upgraded to buying a USB mic that you plugged into your laptop to record. Eventually, I started using my iPhone to record the camera, and then we started posting some of those on Instagram. And I think about a year ago, I really invested into buying good cameras, buying good mics and good lights, and got a good set of microphone. I just saw what Joe Rogan was using, and I was like, that's the podcast microphone that I want. And so the reason why I'm sharing these things with you is because I never thought that the podcast would become what it is today, and that I would have had the pleasure and the honor of interviewing some of the incredible guests that we've had on the show. And I literally started with just my laptop, right? When I first started, I was still very much a perfectionist type A type of person. Now I would consider myself a recovering perfectionist and type A type of person. But back then, when I said I'm going to do a podcast, my mind wanted to have the best microphone, the best camera, and the best lights, but I didn't have the budget to do these things. And again, a lot of my money was going to cancer treatments. And so my mentor told me, just start with what you have. And once it gets better, just improve from there. And so I literally started with the quality of the computer, which I hated personally at the beginning because I was like, it doesn't sound professional, right? And I'm only sharing this because many of us think that if we can't do it fully professionally, then we won't do it at all. But because I started with just a laptop and eventually had enough money saved up to buy a microphone and eventually started using my camera because Zoom did an upgrade where you can use your iPhone as your camera, and we kind of evolved from there. I started with what I had access to and progressed from there. And that's a lesson that I wish I would have learned early on in my life, because if I could have started with what I had, I would be a lot further. But many times in my life, I waited till I had everything in alignment to get started. And that delayed me, honestly, on some projects by a decade, because I could have started a decade earlier and I could have been further ahead. But ultimately, my journey is perfect the way that it is. But I'm just sharing this lesson for those of you that are waiting for everything to be perfect to get started on the thing that you want. And I was recently listening to a podcast, I believe it's called Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, and they were sharing statistics of what it takes to be a part of the top podcaster in the world, or to be a part of the crew that is a part of like top 1 or 2% of podcasters in the world. And they said that the requirement to do that is that you had to publish more than 15 episodes, because most podcasters quit within 15 episodes of publishing because they don't see any results. And so when I started, it was just a different medium for me to share what I had to share, because I like to talk and I like to write, but there's just so much writing that I could do on Instagram because attention span is a lot shorter, so I could put these really long texts. But now I've been blessed to build an incredible weekly newsletter, and then to have this podcast. So I have the platform to where I can get my mouth away and share some cool things and interview some amazing people. And so, yeah, just a lesson over the 4 years is just start with what you have and just be consistent with it, because we've consistently been posting at least one podcast a week during the first year. The second and third year, I varied between 1 and 2, just because it was still challenging to grow Fit Vegan and to be able to record all these podcasts and do all this content, because I wasn't blessed with the team that I have now. Like, we have a full editor that edits all of the podcasts, all the YouTube videos, all the graphics. We have an operations manager. We have coaches. We have nutritionists. We have doctors. So I now have the capacity to spend more time on the podcast. And it was only in 2024 that I committed to publishing 2 episodes every single week, which I am happy to say that we have honored that promise since we've started. And I'm working on the episodes for the rest of the year. We're going to be able to honor that promise of posting 2 podcasts every single week for all of 2024, which I plan on continuing in 2025. But we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, because now that the video format has kind of become our most popular in terms of download, as you've noticed in some of the episodes, if you're watching them on YouTube, we've leveled up the quality of the podcast audio and video. Like, Ivy and I started flying to different states to record with members in person, because I just feel that it creates such a better episode when we're able to do that. And so that's our plan for next year. A lot of travel, a lot of connecting with members in person, guests in person, to be able to up level the quality of the podcast. And so be sure to stay tuned for that, because I'm very excited for that. And if you have a chance to just go back to some of the first episodes of the Fit Vegan podcast, I can see how much I've improved as a speaker, as an interviewer, and as a podcaster. And it's been really cool to kind of go back recently to listen to some of those old episodes and be like, wow, I started from there and I got better through sheer volume of repetition ultimately. And so, yeah, it's been a beautiful journey. And as you'll hear in some of the upcoming clips, I got my editor to cut out some highlights of conversation of top guests that we've had on the show. But I've been able to connect with amazing people that I looked up to when I first got into veganism. And now I'm proud to say that I consider many of those people to be my friends, right? We had the opportunity to talk to, Chuck Carroll. We had Doug Evans on the show, had Dr. Barnard, Dr. Clapper, Dr. Greger. Who else we had? We had Dr. Joel Furman. We have a few more doctors coming out, but those episodes haven't launched yet, so I'll keep those a secret for now. We had Darren O'Lean on the show. We had Doutsy, we had Alexandra Paul. We had the opportunity to coach Alexandra Paul. And so, yeah, it's just been a beautiful, wild ride to get to interview some of these incredible people that have accomplished amazing things and that are on a mission to serve the world. And I'm happy that I was able to provide that platform to help facilitate some of that message in that serving that they want to do. And so in the upcoming clips, you're going to hear some of the highlights from some of the incredible guests that we've had on the show, potentially some episode that you didn't know we had on the show because you might be newer to the podcast. And so what we'll do down below is for every clip that we show, we will put the link to the full interview. And so if you want to go listen to the full interview with that guest, you'll be able to find that in the link in the description. And same thing if you're listening on the podcast, we will link all of that for you on there. So enjoy the upcoming clips of some of the incredible guests that we had the pleasure of interviewing on the show. I'm joined by Doutsy Bausch.
A lot of people don't know this, but the United States and New Zealand are the only countries in the world whose Olympic teams are not government funded. So they have to go out and get private sponsors. So the US went out and got dairy as a title sponsor for 10 years, basically all the years that I was in there training. And so we had that for the whole 10 years. It was just the perpetuation of the lie that you need dairy foods to be healthy, to be strong, to recover, to repair, and to basically win medals. I mean, that's what they were selling.
Yeah.
I don't really think too many of us necessarily believed that hook, line, and sinker. Like, it, some were like, whatever, I'll, had it at, whey protein or milk for recovery. They knew it had carbs, proteins, and fats. Fine. But when I went plant-based, I started to just really question that deeply, right? And trying to understand, why is this one milk from this one specific bovine species supposed to be good for adult humans? Like, I don't understand how did that happen, and how did that unfold, and why are we being sold this lie, and why is our government putting so much money into this industry when there's lots of industries that are doing incredible work that they're not putting any money into, so AKA the subsidies for big ag. So just with that heart and that curiosity, I started asking a lot more questions. And then, post retirement, we had an opportunity in 2018, 6 Olympians, 6 of us from 4 different countries, that wanted to put a commercial on the closing ceremonies of that Olympic Games, which were in Pyeongchang that year, the Winter Olympics. And we just felt a calling, a pull to tell the truth. Like, they can advertise all they want, but the science is not there. And it's just crazy that this is being sold this way. And so we said, let's say something, let's do something, let's stand up, let's tell the truth. So we did. And long story short, we had planned to put the commercial on the closing ceremonies of that Olympic Games on NBC here in the States. And it was supposed to air in 6 cities. We couldn't afford the whole country because it's very expensive, with these incredible funders that were behind us the whole way. It airs in Washington, D.C., and then it doesn't air anymore. And so we call, next morning, what the WTF, the dairy industry had called and gotten it kicked off of NBC, only really because, they were going to continue to run ads on NBC and we weren't, so NBC just acquiesced and was like, fine, they just did it. Yeah. So that's the power of the dollar. But
I don't think that's what they had in mind when they asked you guys to make a video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that really was sort of the Switch for Good name came up because at the end of the commercial, we had to tell we had to tell people what to do. Like it was that was an afterthought. We're like, oh my God, the end card. What is the end card going to say? We'd done the whole commercial. Yeah. And so we did Switch for Good, make the switch for good, ditch dairy or drop dairy and make the switch for good or something like that. And so, but post, that really set a fire in me that they got it kicked off. And I feel grateful, honestly, to this day that they did, because I don't think Switch for Good would be here. I don't know that I'd be doing the activism that I'm doing now. And so that was a fire that has not stopped burning, that you're not going to silence the truth. It's just, that's not how it's going to work. And that's not how it's going to go down. And the dairy industry is almost on their last leg. 73% of their income comes from our federal government subsidies. They are not being kept alive because of the consumers demanding the product. They are being kept alive from years of my tax dollars. And I do believe it'll be the first animal food to topple.
So Alexandra, welcome to the show.
I guess I justified that dairy wasn't that bad. Like, I was doing all these other things. And those other things, by the way, took years. I mean, I stopped eating meat right away, but then taking out the makeup and the clothes and the products took years, and really asserting myself in my life and saying, no, that's not my makeup, not my clothes, not my food. That's an adjustment.
Yeah.
What I've learned from now is that from all the doctors that Dotsie and I have interviewed on our podcast, Switch for Good, and we've done 260 interviews, every single one said giving up dairy is so much more impactful on your health and so impactful for the animals and the earth. And most people don't think that. They think giving up meat is more important. And I thought that too. So for anyone thinking that they can sort of get away with dairy ethically and healthfully, just know that actually, you're keeping in the most harmful part of, the vegan ecosystem or the non-vegan ecosystem. Because I didn't have a huge amount of dairy in my diet. I was never a cheese person. A lot of people say they love cheese and they can't give up cheese. I was never a cheese person. I'm more of like sweets. So it was sort of the, frozen yogurt, and I did like Caesar salad, but otherwise I never added cheese to anything except for if it was already in a salad. But it was in, of course, eggs were in muffins and things like that I liked.
So you meant, last part I heard was like there was eggs in a muffin. So basically it was just more of like a convenience piece that you didn't cut out these last little few things.
Yeah, it was my convenience. I wanted what I wanted because I was afraid if I deprived myself, I might go back into my eating disorder, So it wasn't a huge amount, but it was every day. It was every day. It was more emotionally. It was my heart just cracked open. I really saw the injustices in the world and more of my own biases in the world. It was really interesting. I had no idea that it would change me so much to make that one step, but it really did. And my heart opened up and I was more loving and patient, and it was such a surprise to me. It was a real surprise to me that I would have such a change like that. I thought I was doing it for the animals. It turned out that, yes, it helps animals, but also helped me so much on a spiritual level.
Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Shane Martin from Shane and Simple.
And so I tell people, even if, you're 20 pounds overweight and you don't feel all of what I felt, it's just you're numb to the pain at this point. So it's like, and regardless of how you feel, I mean, I feel like that's where we can't always do things on how we feel, because it's like facts are not always the truth, so just because you feel okay and feel good doesn't mean you don't have issues going on or you can't do something better. It's like, and so I tell people, it's like, I'm not going to try to convince you to go plant-based. I'm not going to try to convince you to be a vegan. I think the science is out there. It does it. Yes, I'm walking evidence. I'm a living evidence of it, but it is what it is. And because you're not going to convince people against their will. And I feel like a lot of people sadly get to that point of desperation. And it's just like, the science is in. It's funny because that's how the blog started. Is when all my family saw me just dropping weight and getting healthy. And the one thing they all said is they were like, you look healthy. You don't look depleted. And to me, that's the key, because when people do this Atkins or keto and they're starving all the time and they look hungry, and it was like, I never was hungry, and so they were asking, what are you doing? Like, what is it that you are doing? And when I would tell them, a lot of times the response would be, oh, that's interesting, but you still got to have your dairy and your protein. And I'm like, yeah, it looks like I'm really struggling with that, doesn't it? I mean, it's just, and so really my wife was like, if you could start a blog, because she followed a lot of bloggers, she said, maybe you could just put the recipes out there. So if the family wanted them, and I'd never blogged or anything like that. And so, but that's kind of how the blog was originally birthed. It was going to just be a place to throw some stuff up to send to the family,
Today's a very special episode that is close to my heart, and we'll dive into that shortly. But I have Chris Work here.
I went into the hospital on December 30th. They took out a third of my large intestine. When I woke up, they said, it's worse than we thought. You're stage 3, which means the tumor had spread through the wall of my colon. It had spread to the surrounding lymph nodes. And the standard of care is, at that time for stage 3 colon cancer, was surgery and then chemo. So I was told that was the next step for me. And 2 things happened in the hospital. The first was that are worth sharing. The first was the very first meal that they served me after cutting out a third of my large intestine was a sloppy Joe.
Yeah.
And the sloppy Joe this is prison food. I mean, that's what it is. Like, restaurants don't serve sloppy Joes. Like, this is the worst example of like cafeteria food. Some kind of ground mystery meat, beef and other animal products.
Parts. Yeah.
Right? And like stewed in some kind of sauce and then ladled onto a white burger bun. And I'm just thinking, why are they serving this to the guy who just had a third of his colon removed? This is crazy. Like, are they serving this to the guy that just had open heart surgery and a quadruple bypass down the hall? Like,
yeah, probably.
To everyone in the intensive care, ward. And it's true. I mean, hospitals serve horrible food. There has been some improvements over the years. Some hospitals have become more conscientious, but generally they serve horrible food to people. The other thing that happened was the day they told me I could go home, my surgeon came in to check on me and I said, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? Because I instinctively wanted to make sure I, didn't cause any problems. They just took out a third of my large intestine. Everything you eat is going to go through there, right? Is going to go through the tube that they just took a section out of and then sewed back together. And so, I asked this sort of innocent question, is there any food I need to avoid? And his answer is, no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
And I love that that's the analogy that they use.
Yeah, it's like a joke, right? He's like making a little joke.
Yeah.
Just don't lift anything heavy. But he's also saying in so many words, like, alcohol's fine.
Yeah.
So, right away, I'm like, they've served me red meat, which is a group 2 carcinogen. They've given me permission, the doctors, to drink alcohol, which is a known carcinogen, cause of cancer. And so, why is there this massive disregard for health and nutrition in the healthcare system? Do they really care about your health? Or do they just care about treating the sick, making money off of sick people? And if you think about it, it's not a conspiracy. It's just a business that thrives on sickness.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not sick, your doctor doesn't make money off of you. Right? You need a long line of sick people to stay in business as a doctor. Yeah. At least the way our current medical model is set up. It's not designed for preventative care, although there's money to be made in preventative screenings and blood testing and things. But generally speaking, doctors are not trained in how to help people prevent chronic disease. And they're not trained in helping people reverse chronic disease either, which may sound like a shock, but they're trained in treating chronic disease. What that means is you go to med school, you learn human anatomy, and then you have to memorize all of the drugs that are used to treat conditions, right? Illness, disease, maladies. And most of those drugs do not cure the diseases that we suffer from, unless you have like a bacterial infection, right? Some kind of life-threatening infection. Drugs can cure that sometimes. But if you have heart disease, cancer, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, lupus, autoimmune disease, if you have any of these chronic Western diseases, then the medical approach, the allopathic approach to treatment is you will find very disappointing. Because typically what pharmaceuticals do is they just alleviate your suffering enough for you to get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes not enough to do that. But they keep you in a state of what I call vertical illness. You're not horizontal, right? You can get out of bed and you can get through the day, but you're not well.
Yeah.
And I know I'm on a rabbit trail / rant, but this is important. And these are things I didn't understand when I was diagnosed with cancer. Like I said, I was clueless, completely ignorant. And I was rushed into treatment out of fear. And, when a patient goes to the doctor and they get a cancer diagnosis, they're all thinking the same thing. How did I get cancer? Why did I get cancer? What caused this? Right? What is the cause of my problem? I mean, this is just how humans are wired, right? We know that we live in a cause and effect world. We were taught that in elementary school science, right? That everything in the world, the entire universe operates on a cause and effect principle. And so we all want to know why we got cancer. And the answer that patients get from their doctor is typically a shrug. Well, we don't know, but it might be hereditary or genetic, or it may just be bad luck.
Yeah, there's never a lifestyle component. Today, I am joined by Dr. Neil Barnard, who's the president of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine.
With eggs, people think of them as a great protein source, start off your day with lots of protein and whatever. But the surprise is that if you eat a potato, it's got more protein than an egg. Now, what I mean is large potato, large egg, or medium potato, medium egg. The potato has more protein. And it's got a lot more too. It has complex carbohydrate. And of course, you can ruin a potato. Comes out of the oven, slather with butter, sour cream, cheese doodles, bacon bits, and you can pack the calories in it. But and there's nothing special about an egg other than phenomenal marketing, because they took this little cholesterol bomb that has a little bit of protein in it, and they've got people eating raw eggs, and guys go to the gym and they think, oh, I need this protein. They would do better if they would go home and do a plant-based diet. They would be able to put on the muscles that they want to put on without putting on all the cholesterol.
That is such a true statement. I was that guy back in the day. I would drink raw eggs as my protein shake before I went to the gym. And I'm so happy that I transitioned almost a decade ago to eating plant-based. I wish I would have done it sooner.
With Wegovy or Ozempic, which by the way are the same drug, they're just marketed under two different names.
Okay.
The big thing is that the weight comes back. And the problem is, let's say you were taking it for a year, which is common. You take it for a year and then you think, gee, I can't keep doing this anymore. And they stop. The weight all comes back. You didn't learn anything during that time. You didn't learn how to
healthy habits.
They're going to protect you. You're no better off. You're back to square one. So my thought is, wait, stop. There are some foods that love you back. And you can do my French toast if you want, or Dustin Harder, one of the terrific recipe developer, has this thing called a triple berry sorbet. Or we've got black and blue brownies in black beans, blueberries in the brownies. I mean, just delicious foods. And if a year ago you had started making my recipes and sharing them with your family, by now your whole family would be doing dramatically better. That's another thing about it. A medication doesn't have any benefit for people around you. But when you learn how to use the power foods, you can get healthier, you can get slimmer, and so can everybody who eats with you or hangs out with you. Let's say you've got a spouse, you've got a partner, somebody who you depend on. You're not going to share an Ozempic injection, I hope. But what you can share is my pasta arrabbiata, my Southwest chili. You can get healthy together. If you've got kids, and if you are not role modeling healthy foods for your kids, what happens? The kids they grow up to have the same risk as all the other American kids around them, which is overweight, diabetes, higher risk of cholesterol issues, sometimes before they get their high school diploma. So we want to learn how these fuels work, use them, and they are delicious and they're fun, and your environmentalist friends will praise you because, it's not meaty junk. So anyway, the benefits of doing it naturally are just huge.
All right, James, brother, welcome to the show, man.
Before the film came out, and we thought it would resonate well with a lot of people because a lot of people follow sports, and it doesn't matter if you're left wing or right wing. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, right? There's a unifying thing around sports, and so as get people to sort of watch and listen to that and be open to it. And we also know that there are role models, with athletes and also firefighters and who were in the film as well, and like the Australian sort of Navy SEAL equivalent, Damien, that was in the film, talking about the animals and the environment. Like, that's also a role model. So we thought that the concept would do well. We thought that people would be open to it. But before the film came out, there was a lot of these sort of dietitians and experts saying you can't get enough protein from plants, you're right, or the quality of the protein's not good. And now those same people, or people like them as well, are saying, okay, well, you can get enough protein, but you've got to be a bit more cognizant about it. Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, you do have to be, you can't just take all the meat and eggs and dairy off your plate and go, okay, I'm just eating vegetables that were left. You do have to think about where your protein's coming from, especially if you're an athlete, and trying to optimize athletic performance. But if you're on an omnivorous diet, then you've got to be more cognizant about lots of things, about your fiber intake, keeping low saturated fat intake, high unsaturated fats, which you're going to get all of those things. You're going to be better naturally without thinking about it on a vegan diet that's focused towards eating, mostly whole plant foods.
That he won the Big Dogs Backyard Ultra in Tennessee, where he ran, and get ready for this, 450 miles in 108 hours, which also gave him the world record. And I love that he is vegan. He's also a full-time teacher in Cincinnati School for Creative and Performing Arts. So I'm talking to none other than Harvey Lewis III. So like, what was the last push that made you go fully vegan in that transition? Like, did you read a book, documentary? Was there a personal experience?
That's great. Like, honestly, it was something that I had really always, I guess, felt that I would do in time. Like, and I had procrastinated a long time eating vegetarian. It was, so I just got more to the place where I'm like, I need to do this. And I feel like probably what really pushed me over that was just knowing that, like, even if I was eating eggs or I was eating like cheese, I wasn't drinking dairy milk, but I was eating like some derivative of the dairy product, and I'm really supporting the industry. And I feel like the industry is not only like it's like, I feel like it's really totally inhumane. Like, I feel like it's like, especially because we can get products that are so good for our health that don't come from animals. So the whole thing of like, I really didn't, I kind of separated from my mind, thinking about something like, well, how does it work for the cows? Like, I mean, you have female cows are necessary for the production of milk up to a stage, and then they're going to be slaughtered. So, and then also the male calves that are born, they're oftentimes slaughtered for veal, or they just don't, there's not a necessity, like, in terms of, like, so it's like, it was easy for me for some time to say, oh, I'm not supporting the meat industry. I'm just having occasionally like cheese pizza, or I'm like having something that might have some dairy in it. But like, indirectly, I was also contributing to that industry. So like, for me, it's very important to support products that I believe in. So when I'm buying, like, for example, sunblock, the first thing I look at is like, is it tested on animals? So I'm like, I actually look at that kind of thing, and I care about that sort of thing. So I feel like that was definitely my number one motivation for finally making the full shift to eating vegan. But then when I did it in 2016, I wasn't expecting to get results from that physically. But what I found is actually like I was let's see, that was 8 years ago. So I was 40 years old when I did this. And then my strongest running years have been all since going vegan and at 40. So at age 40, in 2019, I ran like my furthest distance at the World Championship for 24-hour races, which was 160.60 miles. And then I did the last person standing, which was 450 miles in 4.5 days. Winning Badwater again in 2021. Numerous other things. I finally made the top 10 ultra runners of the year for North America the last 3 years in a row. And that happened after it took me 25 years of ultra running to finally crack the top 10 list, which was crazy. Like, I never would have imagined that back when I started, like having run ultras for 5 years or having run ultras for 10 years. I never expected that sort of thing would ever happen. So there was a real gain in terms of the physical benefits, in terms of like recovery time, less inflammation.
Today I'm joined by a very special guest, which is second appearance on the show, which is Dr. Clapper.
You know, like there's like this curse has fallen upon the person from Jupiter, and a person has no control over they're innocent victims that only the doctor can help them control their ultimate fate, which is going to be a dismal death. Well, that's simply untrue. And so I want to get that message out to them. These are reversible diseases, that a plant-based diet is not only adequate, but it's the key to reversing these diseases. Those are 4 really important messages to get across to these students. So how do we do it? Because, as I mentioned, this is heresy to the standard medical teaching. It rocks their intellectual understanding of etiology unknown. It's largely, yes, there's a genetic component, but as they say, your genes may load the gun, but your diet and your lifestyle pull the trigger. Whether that you may have a genetic propensity towards diabetes or hypertension, but whether those genes actually express in disease largely, not completely, but largely depends on the food you are flowing through your cells with every meal, and that turn genes on and turn genes off. Our genetics are not written in stone. They are amenable to outside factors, largely our diet, but stress and the environment, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to tell them they have control over this genetic component. And finally, because this is, as I said, this is heresy to the establishment's intellectual understanding, it certainly challenges their treatment model, because now it's just, you see the doctor, makes a diagnosis, and is sent off to the pharmacy. Now you pull the dietitian onto the primary care team, so that shakes up their treatment model for sure. Yeah. And then, and certainly it challenges their financial model. The Western medicine makes money off every procedure that is done, every stent, every angiogram. Money is made for doing things to people to treat their disease states. But we're not paying doctors to do nutrition counseling. We don't pay doctors to say eat broccoli. And so the financial model is threatened by this. So knowing that, we don't knock on the door of administration saying, we'd like to give a lecture to your medical students that's going to challenge everything you're teaching them. Fortunately, podcasters like you and the social media, for all its being maligned for misinformation, one thing it has done is made some powerful truths available to the general public. And what's made my job easier is that now in every medical school class, every first, second, third year medical school class, there's 20, 30, 40 students. They've seen films like Forks Over Knives. They've seen What the Health. They've seen Cowspiracy. They've maybe done a Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, Grand Rounds. The light's on. They're reading Dr. Greger's nutritionfacts.org, listening to podcasts like you. So the door has been opened intellectually for me, and we go through that door and swing it wide open and say, "This is, you're not crazy. This is where you want to be looking."
Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Chuck Carroll, who's the host of the Physician Committee, his popular Exam Room podcast, which I had the opportunity to be on. He's known widely as the weight loss champion, which was given the name by an NFL player for losing an incredible 275 pounds. Chuck, welcome to the show, brother.
I remember I was a frequent flyer at the doctor's office, and before everything was computerized, they would, carry in these files, with all of your medical records. And man, that thing just got thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker over time. And they had this sheet of paper where they would just check off what that day's diagnosis was. And I always thought it would be like a game. Can I get every diagnosis that's on that sheet humanly possible? But my blood pressure, man, it was out of control, like sophomore, freshman, even in high school. It was like 180, 190 over 100 or 110. And they put me on beta blockers. And that really didn't do much to change my mentality in terms of needing to eat healthier, because I just assumed I've got these pills, I'm good to go. So I went to the pharmacy to fill the prescription. And while the prescription was being filled, I would go to the drive-through and then back, to get up the pills that would bring the blood pressure back down. I don't like to blame emotions and escapism too much for anything, because I do believe, and this is an ultra simplistic view, but I do believe that if you're conscious of the decision that you're making and the potential ramifications, you're smart enough to know that there is the possibility for change. And so it's just a matter of reaching whatever rock bottom might be for you, and then using that rock bottom, not just to sink and stay, but then to catapult, to launch, to, just spring out of there into a new and healthier life. And so when you reach that rock bottom, you just kind of recognize it and you catapult forward. And so, long answer to a short question. There probably was a sense of escapism. But I think that the more important thing is not to settle into a woe is me thing, because if you had something traumatic happen to you, like the babysitter incident, or, painful separations, or whatever the case may be, that wasn't entirely your fault. One thing that you absolutely can control is what you put in your body. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but take all of that anger and that frustration and that rage that you have because you were never able to control that, and then put it into this and taking care of yourself and recognizing and giving yourself permission to be in control for perhaps the first time in your life. And you seize that control and you put all of your effort and energy into that. That is your sole focus. And that's when amazing things can happen. That's when amazing things can happen. So if you recognize that you're hurting, you're smart enough to know that you can change and fix the situation no matter how much. And I will tell you flat out, it will suck and it will be painful at first to make those changes. But when you break through and you prove to yourself how powerful you can actually be, brother, you got a sweet life ahead of you at that point.
Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Darren O'Lean.
I didn't make up the fact that all these chemicals you're swimming around in. If you decide not to do anything and wear synthetic underwear that are on your testes or your vaginal wall and are PFAS is getting into your bloodstream, that's on you, man. Like, if you want to be so unaware, there's a big population of people that you exist well with. That's fine. I am not here to make someone's choice for them. But my first book's title was called Super Life for a reason. I want me and I want others to live a super life. I want us to define what life is. I want us to define what utopia is and could be. And utopia is not me having chemicals all over. All of these clothes are from Industry of All Nations.
I was going to ask. I just bought a bunch of them, like when I met Doug. They're great.
They're so great. And I know those guys. And they've gone to all the links, right? And it's like, if I were to create a clothing company, I would create it exactly how these guys are doing it. It is hard work. It is more expensive because they're not in this fast fashion bullshit, right? So it's like, I feel so freaking good wearing these clothes because I know where they're from. I know who did it. I know it's good for my body. And so, yeah, man, initially, I have empathy for sure. When you take this on as anything, when you take on your workout and you've blown it off for a month and you haven't done it's a pain in the ass and your body's sore and everything else. But once you got in the groove, you feel great, you feel strong, your mental outlook change, you have confidence. That's the thing, man. And so when you take one step, change your underwear out, change your water filter, use glass bottles, change your lotion, change your deodorant and your shampoo and your conditioner. Once you've changed that stuff out, you don't have to think about it again. Like, don't be lazy. If laziness will, all it does is say the universe going, okay, well, you don't care enough about that. That's it. That's as good as you're going to get, right? And so you literally give your intention over to a company that doesn't give a shit about you, and then you rebuy a product that knowingly has chemicals in it. Like, no way. I want all of us to wake up, to detoxify ourselves, and create the kind of life that we want. I understand that it's a pain in the ass, but I didn't put it here. You didn't put it here, but it's here.
Yeah.
Radical honesty with our life. If we're not honest, nothing changes. If we're not honest and we don't confront things and be optimistically real, that's it. I want, you're talking about Mike Posner, you're talking about Doug Evans, you're talking about Adam Sudd. You know the common theme? And then you're talking about Darren O'Leen. You know the common theme of all of those people who I consider great friends?
What is it?
Is we all want extraordinary lives. And we hold that for each other, right? We hold that and we resonate together. And when we get together, we amplify everything in each other. That's the kind of life that I want. So we help each other out, we poke each other, we allow each other. I have many sets of friends that do that for me. So it's cultivating the kind of life that we want, right? That is, yes, facing your toothpaste that has a chemical, bad biological use of fluoride in that toothpaste with colors and dyes and parabens wrapped in, wrapping it in plastics with parabens and other phthalates and endocrine disrupting. If you want to just keep buying that toothpaste, that's fine. You can do that. That's a fine life. But you have real consequences that are happening as a result. Is it acutely killing you? No, but it's slowly hurting you.
Yeah.
So that's the point. They don't care about you. You should care about you. That is the first point. When you care enough about you, of course you want better freaking products. Of course you want to suffer as a result of this weird ass world that we're all in. So we come together, we have these conversations, we up level our life, we come together, we find our tribe, and we just help each other live a better life.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'm very excited today. We'll be talking with Dr. B, the man himself. How are you doing today?
So many people, when they go, January 1st and they go hardcore vegan, like raw vegan, they weren't even close to eating that way. and then they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm miserable. I don't feel well. This is not the diet for me. It's like, well, are you surprised?
It's a hard shift.
That's a hard shift. That's a huge, massive shift all at once. So when we shift towards a more healthful diet, we're establishing a new baseline. And it's a baseline where you actually feel more energized, more empowered, right? Your body is in more alignment. And then when you throw the junk into the engine, you really notice the effect on the way that the car runs.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel that way too. One of the things that happened to me, this is a story I've only told this a couple times. I quit eating meat, and I was in Savannah, Georgia. This was like 2014 or 15, somewhere in there. Okay. So I had not had a steak in a very long time.
Yeah.
And that used to be like my, sort of, if I'm going out for a treat, I'm going to go out and get a steak.
Yeah.
Right. So I had a really horrible week at work. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, waking up at 4 a.m. so that I could be in the hospital by 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I was leaving the hospital typically at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. That was the whole week. There were actually times where I was running from patient to patient just to try to cut down on the time so that I could try to get home.
Yeah.
The week ended, and I was like in one of those modes where I'm like, dude, screw it.
Yeah.
I deserve to eat something that I really love. So I went out by myself to a steakhouse. And I sat at the bar, and they brought out this meal that used to be my favorite. And it smelled different.
Yeah.
And I took 2 bites, and I was kind of grossed out by it. And this was like just organically how I felt. This was not an ethical issue for me. This was something has changed.
Yeah.
This doesn't smell or taste the way that I remember it. In fact, it's just not in alignment with, like, it doesn't make me feel good. And I actually just like grabbed the bill and I left. I paid, obviously, but I paid and I got out of there as quickly as possible before they would ask me any questions.
Yeah.
So I think that our shifts in our microbiome can be like very powerful in terms of our taste buds and things like that, how we feel.
Today we have a very special guest that I'm really excited to record with. We have Rip Esselstyn. How are you doing today?
When I first started doing this, it was really for performance reasons, right? It wasn't for health reasons. It wasn't for weight reasons. It was, I want to be the best triathlete that I possibly can. And I believe I can do that, fueling myself with whole plants. And then as I've been going down this path on my journey, and as I have gotten older, as I've gotten married and had kids, I realize, and as the world has gotten more and more polluted with the climate crisis, I realize that that term vegan, it's very powerful, and there is definitely some very strong merit to the word and all that it carries with it. Seeing the diabetics, seeing the cardiovascular disease, seeing the strokes, seeing the Alzheimer's, seeing, with every patient, we always do a history. We say, like, so what meds are you on? What have you had any prior history of, anything? And then we hear all about, yeah, I've had, breast cancer. I've had 2 heart attacks before. I'm on this med, this med, this med, and this med, right? A cocktail of medications. Because I lived the lifestyle and I was like, oh my God, all this is lifestyle created. It's because, as you said, they're basically burying themselves with the spoon, the knife, and the fork. But if I'm not looking for that, and I just see somebody with heart disease, somebody with diabetes, I'm not making the connection.
Yeah.
So I don't think most firefighters, most EMS people are thinking, wow, this is because of the standard American diet. They're just thinking, okay, here's a patient with diabetes. What do we got to do to, help them out right now? Here's a person that has had a heart attack. What do we got to do to try and bring them back to life? Right. So now the guys at my station, because we went all in and we started to do this and we talked about it, it was like, wow, can you believe that guy driving that car went into a diabetic, coma and went into that field and into that, telephone pole. Like, wow, did you see the size of him, right? It's probably because he's got diabesity, which is a combination between diabetes and obesity, right? Yeah. So to me, it was absolutely self-evident, but I think for a lot of firefighters and EMS, not so much.
Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Cyrus Kambata.
I literally feel like I'm an 85-year-old man. I'm only 22 years old. What the heck is going on? This doesn't feel right. Right. And so it was when my mobility got challenged that I was just like, oh, hell no. Hell no. You are not taking this away from me. There is no way. Right. And so at that point, I started looking for another option. And then along came a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet and Doug Graham, who, effectively saved my life. The diet that I was eating I thought it was clean. It wasn't clean. Right. The reason I say it wasn't clean is because I went on to learn that a lot of the meat and dairy products that I were eating that were even, quote unquote, organic, if I could find them that way, there were a lot of inflammatory compounds inside of these meat and dairy products that were contributing to inflammation. And the inflammation could be present inside of my gut. It was present inside of my liver, my kidney, my brain, you name it, muscle tissue. So as a result of that, the net effect was that I felt extremely low energy, and my muscle tissue literally was very tight because I believe my muscle tissue and connective tissue was very inflamed. Yeah. So when I switched over to eating a plant-based diet, not only was my glucose controllable and my insulin use fall, like I said earlier, but it felt to me like I took an iPhone charger and I just plugged it into a wall and it just connected to my belly button. And all of a sudden, within like 48 hours, 72 hours, I don't remember, 2 to 3, 4, 5 days, all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow, I just got charged with a ton of energy. This feels really good. Right. So I felt significantly more energetic, which means that I could go and start to use my body more frequently. So I would start to go on longer runs. I would start to, play soccer more frequently and just use my body the way that I was used to. Yeah. And then the final kicker was that I recognized that not only could I use my body the way I wanted it to, but I was able to recover incredibly quickly. So normal recovery time in between workouts is approximately 24 hours, right? You go to the gym today, you work out hard, and then it takes approximately 24 hours for you to be able to work out again at the same time next day. That 24-hour cycle had gotten condensed to like 12 hours. This is in my early 20s. And all of a sudden I was like doing double days. So I'd play a game of soccer at noon, and then I would go to the gym at like 7 p.m. And I was like, man, I feel invincible. This feels incredible. Right. Yeah. So to answer your question, like what was it that caused that low energy feeling? The answer is I don't fully know, but it was some combination of the food I was eating, the inflammatory nature of that food, living with hypothyroidism, and also having uncontrollable blood glucose. And all of that was like the perfect symphony for me to feel like crap. And then I switched over to a completely different perfect symphony where I was eating a significant amount of carbohydrate energy, which was very valuable for muscle tissue. Yeah. I was now operating in the carbohydrate economy, AKA I was using glucose as a fuel and storing it as glycogen and using that as a fuel depot. And then I was eating a ton of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants and phytochemicals, which were all helping allow muscle tissue to be able to recover real quickly after a workout. Before I knew it, I was like, okay, this is a solution. This feels great.
All right, Robbie, my man, how are you doing?
Doug Graham likes to say, simplicity at your meals, variety in your diet. And I like that. I think that's a great concept. And now, in 2023, we have a lot of new fascinating data emerging about the gut microbiome and diversity. And so I'm in favor of that, right? And so if somebody does want to have a salad with 30 different ingredients, that's cool. Like, that's great. I think the mono eating, the simplicity, that can come into play and be beneficial when needed, right? Like when there's something digestive going on that you want to clean up, but you don't want to stay there long term. You don't want to just eat like a couple of different foods for an entire year. It's always a short term thing. It's always like restoring treating something that might be going on and then adding things back intelligently. So I'm actually a big supporter of it for people who feel ready and called to it, but also, I've evolved personally to adding more ingredients to my meals. Like there was this period of time, this still exists on the internet for anybody who wants to go see it. I documented every single morsel of food that went in my body for 365 consecutive days. I took a picture of every meal. I did the chronometer nutrition breakdown, and then I had like this screenshot of like all the different details of how many. I even analyzed the water content of each meal, and I documented every insulin injection and every blood sugar reading for 365 consecutive days. I'll give you a link for people who want to click, below the show and go see that. It's healthyoptimist.smugmug.com. But my meals were far simpler back then than they are now. It's always been the same foods. My diet has not changed in 17 years as far as the foods, but I'm certainly enjoying and happy to include more ingredients in small amounts. So one thing I think that's important to know is you don't need to have large amounts of particular ingredients in order to receive the benefits of increasing the diversity in your gut microbiome. So if you're going to make a salad, adding a little bit of sunchokes, which is something probably most people are not eating, is cool. It's good. It's fun. You don't have to have a ton, just a little bit.
Today we have a very special guest, a really dear friend of mine, Mr. Robert Cheek.
So the entire purpose of the Impactful Vegan is to have it as a useful tool. Utility is really the purpose. The book is not something to read and say that was a good book. I enjoyed that. The book is designed that when you read through it, you are compelled to take actions all throughout the book. You're compelled to determine what Animal Charity Evaluators has deemed as the most effective and impactful animal charities in the world after looking at 3,000 of them. And they give their top 10 list basically year after year, which is for 2002 highlighted in the book, and 2003 you can find online and on down the line. So it's designed to have you pause for a moment and say, you know what, these are organizations worthy of my financial contribution, my donation. The book is designed to have you pause for a moment when I ask you to remove your personal biases and your regional biases and realize that just outside the comforts of our own borders, there's an untold amount of suffering happening in the developing world, including for animals. And so I encourage readers to pause and reflect upon contributing to international organizations where the US dollar stretches so much further than it will right here in the United States or Canada. There's all kinds of examples in the book, including that strong V that I referenced earlier, encouraging people how to use your own strengths and skills and talents and resources and your network to do good for animals, and to pause for a moment and realize who you know, who you're connected to, what skills you have that you hadn't thought about. Maybe you have these carpentry skills or welding skills or filmmaking skills or public speaking skills or art, poetry skills, handyman or handywoman skills. You have information technology skills or computer programming or coding skills. You have something that is tangible, perhaps even physical strength, where you can lift hay bales and do and move large equipment on farms. You have access to your friend or your neighbor, or like someone like my brother who has these large pieces of equipment that could help out when needed at an animal sanctuary or in any kind of use for utility that reduces animal suffering in whatever capacity or context we're using. That again is a moment to pause and say, who am I connected to? Like when the Game Changers came to me and asked me if I knew anybody who could help with the fundraising for the film, I certainly didn't have any money, but within 30 seconds of sending an email, I raised $100,000 for the film, just like that, because I contacted one of my wealthy friends who was able to make that contribution. When I was invited, if I was willing to, pay the $150 fee and attend the annual Love and Arms Animal Sanctuary Gala event. At the time, I could barely afford to go, especially for me and my wife. It's through $300 for a 3-hour evening as a fundraiser event. But because of my network, my connections, I spent a few minutes sending emails, and I recruited thousands and thousands of dollars in donated products to be used in the silent auction. And by the end of the night, we raised over $200,000 for the animal sanctuary, and I was part of that. I give plenty of examples that are not mine. Yes, I've done some of these things because I've always been an impactful vegan before it had a name. I was always effective. I've always have been. That's why I went into fitness. That's why I use bodybuilding as a vehicle to promote veganism, when the number one objection to veganism as a society is that you can't get enough protein. I shattered that on my own. Obviously hasn't reached the full masses yet, but I unequivocally shattered that myth by gaining 100 pounds and becoming a champion vegan bodybuilder multiple times over, and opened the door for Tori Washington, Nimai Delgado, and so many others to follow.
Today I'm joined by a special guest, Joseph Blair.
I can't tell you a part of my life it didn't benefit. But the changes were almost immediate, and it's crazy. I remember I didn't even think about it, and I was talking to one of my coaches one time just about being vegan, and he was asking me about the energy and the strength and how it changes, and he's like, "And when did your complexion get so clear?" And I was like, "I didn't even. Gosh, you're right. I didn't even think about that." But it's a wonderful byproduct of eating healthy and getting all that extra cholesterol and grease and things out of your diet.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you feel that the league is a little bit more open now to kind of veganism? Obviously, I know there's some big players that are a little bit more vocal about it, but do you feel like there's a bigger interest in it compared to the past few decades?
100%, 100%. I think besides there are some players that are actually starting to advocate for veganism, but I think also that this is where I kind of talked about before. I think that before, if you think about what was happening, there was this huge influx of money and marketing put into dairy industry, meat industry, pork industry, eggs, cheese, all these things. Now, and honestly, that is an issue with, globally, we all fall victim to just mass marketing. But now, because there's actually money to be made in veganism, now that marketing is starting to be scaled up there as well. And the difference is also they're marketing that with education as well. People are becoming educated about it and saying, "Wait, I was told this food pyramid thing was the way to go," and now they're like, "Well, that was funded by the dairy and meat industry, the food pyramid was. So really look at it, you don't really need that, and this is really better, and this is good." And people are like, "Whoa, hold on, well, wait, if that's true, maybe I should try that." And gosh, that doesn't look too bad. That actually looks really good.
Today I had the pleasure of interviewing Nathan Crane.
There's just no need to kill animals for our food. We do not need to, period. And I believe every animal has a soul. I believe they have a soul just like humans do. I see it in my own animals. I see it in my dogs. I see it in horses. I see it in cows. I see it in pigs, right? Like I went and saw my wife's family has pigs in Mexico, and, their life is a bit of a challenging life. And, they raise them there. And like, I'm sitting there just talking with the pigs and hanging out with them. I'm looking in their eyes. I'm like, this looks like a human looking back at me. And it's like, I just feel all this energy and love coming towards me. It's like, how could we eat these poor animals? We don't need to. And I grew up on meat and potatoes in Montana, like hunting my own deer, fishing our own fish, fly fishing and trout fishing and all of that. And actually it was funny when I moved to San Diego, before I was vegan, or before I became plant-based, a friend invited me to, and I was kind of on this spiritual path and meditating and stuff for a couple of years already, invited me to go fishing at the beach, I think in Oceanside. And we went there and there was just something, a part of me, I was like, why? Like, I don't want to hurt this fish. What do? You catch it and then you let it go? Like, you're not even going to eat it? Like,
poked a hole in his mouth for nothing.
Yeah, like for fun? Like, that's fun? Like, are you kidding me? Like, torturing some animal is fun? What do you think that animal's going through? Oh, they don't care. Oh, yeah? Let me put a freaking hook through your mouth and say you don't care.
Yeah, just release you after.
Catch and release you, buddy. Send you out on the pier and, someone can kick you off the end of it and see what you think about that. Like, are you going to enjoy that? Of course not.
Today I have a very special guest that I had the opportunity to meet like a month and a half ago at NHA. have Dr. Mobeen Syed.
Is something that I'm really passionate about, and that is making people aware about inflammation, and especially subclinical and chronic inflammation. 60% of Americans have at least one chronic disease that is related to chronic inflammation. 42% of Americans have diseases, more than one diseases, that are related to chronic inflammation. For example, diabetes, cardiac issues, cardiovascular issues, angina, etc., strokes. And so when I look at the market, how the pharma and how the medical community is helping these patients, I see that there is a lot of stress and innovation and research on the secondary outcomes. And that is, if there is chronic inflammation, then because of that, there is diabetes. We try to really, really handle diabetes instead of trying to figure out what's happening under the hood. And so I want to make people aware that lifestyle changes, food changes, various habits, reduced stress, reduced pollutant exposure, etc., can really help us have better, healthier life without pharmaceutical intervention. And so that is my purpose at this time. I'm writing a book about this as well, chronic inflammation and how that affects us and how that increases the risk of cancers and diabetes and cardiovascular issues and so on.
Well, Natalie and George, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you both on here.
When I did my first MPC show and I got second and qualified automatically, I think that gave me the confidence to really go for it, because back then, just like right now, people were still saying you can't turn pro unless you take performance enhancement drugs. And I was like, well, I'm going to show you. And then they were like, well, if you're vegan, you're definitely not going to turn pro. So it was almost like I wanted to prove people wrong. Like that was such a big thing for me. And I knew I had two things. Like I'm a really hard worker and I had great genetics. And if I really set my mind to something, I knew I was going to do it. So yeah, that first show really gave me the confidence. And then in 2018, I went and did my second MPC show, won my class, and I think I missed the overall by like a point or something. And then went to my first national show, got third, did an international Olympia, got fourth, and I was always bouncing around, just missing my pro card by 1 or 2 spots. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't give up. So I gave it my all that season, and it took me 3 tries, and I finally got it. And it was such a special day because George wasn't supposed to be there. Were you on like
I was at work.
He was at work. Yeah, he was flying somewhere, and Tori was there too because he was trying out for his pro card. He got it actually the day after, which was amazing because there were 2 vegans representing, and we were just really proud because we were all doing the same tour. Corinne was doing the same tour back then with all of us, and we were all just trying to really get this pro card. So George wasn't supposed to be there, and he showed up like an hour before, and I'm like, everything was meant to be. Like my mindset, everything, all the cards, I knew I had put in the work. And when it happened, it was just like, and I saw the person that told me that I couldn't do it, and I literally like went, ha! So it was like the best feeling ever. Yeah.
Today I'm joined by a very special guest and a good friend, Johnny Morelli, aka Johnny Juicer, and he is a health and wellness enthusiast, creator, and coach.
And I think the people that have made that journey and really walked that journey, I mean, it is a drastic change. It's like you almost dying a life and being reborn. That's how it feels, because you're so used to eating these empty calorie, dead foods processed with chemicals and toxins that we don't know what they're doing to our body. And then all of a sudden you start purifying it with juices and fresh fruits and all this organic stuff and juices, and you start eliminating and you start awakening. It literally like awakens your spirit, So if you don't take care of your body, the most magnificent machine you'll ever be given, where are you going to live? And I never really got that until I went raw, and I'm like, wow, that is powerful, So yeah, man, it's anybody who's gone through a drastic change, I have so much respect for, because it's hard. it is hard, especially with the people around you. I mean, I'm a Scorpio and I'm kind of like an extremist. So when I get into something and it's positive, like I go all in. But, you know, some people it's harder. You know, I've coached people throughout the years that it's very difficult to make that transition because of the social aspect of it, or there's not access to the types of fruits and vegetables. You know, when I lived in Chicago, I was grateful because I had this store called Caputo's and they would get tropical fruits and coconuts. And I made a connection with the manager there, and he would always hit me up. Yo, we got dragon fruits. We got this much mangoes. We got boxes of coconuts. And I would go there and pick up like 4 boxes of coconuts. And so it's like when you're making that transition, you got to make those connections too. You can't stay in the same environment. It's almost like that. You can't stay in the same environment you got sick in. You got to create a new environment, a new positive one with people that are doing it, or whoever has access to this. I mean, you got to do it.
Today, I am joined by Ella Majors, an animal lover since birth and dedicated vegan since the age of 15.
In my 20s, and it's something I still kind of go back and look and say, okay, well, what are some of the causes for why this happened? And I think there are multiple. But basically, I got to the point where I put so much pressure on myself. I am a recovering perfectionist, and you know, I took such a huge responsibility, or I saw myself as having a huge responsibility to the animals. So when I found that having this really strong, lean physique was my tool at that point in time for helping animals. That was my gateway to help animals. It was like, okay, now the pressure's on, because now my worth and my purpose in life is dependent on the shape of my body. So I got very, very strict with my food. It turned into, I also had some body dysmorphia. So I would look in the mirror and see fat that was not there. I would, you know, be counting and restricting and doing everything that I could to create the quote perfect physique that would attract other people to then ask me how I did it, for me to then share my vegan story and help them go plant-based. So there was, I think, a combination of a lot of pressure. Additionally, I made a lot of really poor decisions in my younger years. So I was a dancer, an exotic dancer in college. So when most girls my age were kind of exploring their sexuality and their bodies alongside other people their age, I was dancing. And my excuse at that time was, well, I'm not going to work at a restaurant and serve meat. So what else can I do to bring in some cash to get me through school? And I had a boyfriend who kind of influenced me into moving in that direction. So that really had an impact on my own relationship with my body. And I was just thinking about this the other day, and I've done so much to heal, you know, since then, and we can talk about that. But, you know, I was being exploited. You know, I was fighting for animals not to be exploited. And then I was putting myself in a position where I was exploiting myself, basically. And so I had a really poor relationship with my body. I was very disconnected with my body. So I saw it as this kind of tool, like I'm going to use my body to fulfill my life's purpose, but not really being in my body. And that was something that I've had to work really hard at overcoming over the years.
And I'm sure you've noticed this with people that are plant-based or vegan, kind of like fanatics. They're going to prioritize animals, environment, and other things over their own health or mental health, right? If you want to put it that way. And the reality is you can have all three, but when you first start and transition, you don't know that it's a possibility, because I'm sure you know a bunch of people that are vegan for the animals, but they eat the shittiest food ever and they don't take care of themselves. Today we have a special episode with a special guest. We have Dr. Michael Greger.
Yeah, well, so if you go to AICR.org, that's the American Institute for Cancer Research, the most prestigious institute when it comes to diet and cancer. They have 10 recommendations in terms of lifestyle. And in terms of diet, in addition to reducing alcohol intake, it's centering one's diet around legumes, your beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, decreasing meat, decreasing fast food, decreasing junk food. And so that's essentially, a whole food plant-based diet. From a health standpoint, it would be healthier to eat a whole food plant-based diet with a small amount of animal products than the strictest vegan diet in the world if you're, living off of Oreos.
All right. So as you can see, we've had the blessing of getting a lot of wisdom from our guests throughout the years. And now I'd like to pivot to some clips from our Fit Vegan success stories that we had the pleasure and honor of interviewing throughout the years, because again, that is why we do everything that we do. When I first launched this, our mission was and is to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and disease-proof their body on plants by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. And I believe that one of the best ways to do that is by our members sharing their story. And every single time that I go to interview some of our members, they don't think necessarily that their story is that inspiring, is that motivating to others. But I've been at this long enough that as much as we feel that we are going through our own thing and not necessarily anyone can relate, when you have the opportunity to be on a platform like this and there's thousands of people listening, undoubtedly there will be someone going through the exact same situation that you're going through or something similar, and maybe something that you're going to say and something that they did or an action that they took on will inspire them to create a different outcome for their life, will change the trajectory of the path that they're heading on. And so that's why I love interviewing our members, because they get to share their own unique story and how they overcame it. And the intention is that when the people are listening that are struggling with their own health and fitness and journey, they're able to listen to that and be like, wow, this person did it, and they started from the exact same place that I was, or they started in a worse position that I was, and they were able to create something better than I'm currently creating. How can I create something better for myself, right? There's an aspiration that comes from that. And so that's why I love interviewing our members as Fit Vegan success stories. And it's been incredible to see those episodes grow throughout the years, because when I started them, it was just for people to share their story. But now when members come into the program and they are on their initial application call, they go, I've listened to a lot of those episodes and I want to be one of the next ones on the show. And so it's been cool to see that they aspire to get an incredible transformation so that they can be on one of those episodes and have the opportunity to inspire and motivate others. And so enjoy the upcoming clips of some of our amazing members that we had the opportunity to have on the show. Again, a lot of them are the one that we were able to record with video so that we can put it on YouTube. We have like 20 plus of them. We'll put a highlight of some of the lessons that they've learned throughout their journey. And so enjoy the incredible knowledge. And again, everything will be linked down below for every guest. There will be a link to the full interview, so you get to watch it if ever you wish to. Podcast today, I'm joined by a special guest, one of our Fit Vegan superstars, Marina.
I think my dad really was frustrated with me probably on Thanksgiving, my first vegan Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like, sit down. You have too much energy. You're supposed to be taking a post-dinner nap. What is wrong?
Exactly. You're supposed to not feel great to the point where you take a nap. Yeah.
Yeah. So it bothered him a little less, just because he's like, all right, there's food on the table. If you're eating, that's all I care about. And then just larger family dinners with the extended family was a little tough, because it was so much more of what tempted me.
Yeah.
Like a 3-pound slab of mozzarella. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I would usually go for it, but I'm going to go for the olives and stick with the olives. So just being exposed to that, and then, okay, now I'm not only making a meal for myself, I'm making a full dish for everybody else to try.
Yeah.
So they've kind of gotten used to it after 2 years of me saying, like, no, I don't feel like doing that. No, it's not even like I just won't try it. It's I don't want to feel horrible anymore.
Today, I'm joined by one of our Fit Vegan superstars, Anne. Anne, how you doing today?
I just do it. I know there's no excuse. It doesn't take more than an hour. If I even took my time in between every exercise and did all the warm-ups and full stretching, which I always do anyway, but it never takes more than a whole hour. So a lot of times I would just go in the basement, turn on the TV, or I would listen to a podcast that I missed from a group call and just be distracted by that. And before I know it, I'm stretching. I'm done with the workout and I've got through it. So I just do it. Sometimes there's just so much going on that I don't have time to do it. I shift it to the next day. I just shifted it and I started my Monday exercises on Tuesday. I mean, I just gave myself another day. I mean, I've done that before in previous weeks. We might have a travel day where we're leaving on Friday. So I do 2 on Thursday, or I would just go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off to accommodate the travel. So I just like the flexibility that the app allows me to shift it. So I'm not like deleting it. I'm just pushing it to when it works in my own schedule. And then I don't feel like, oh, I missed my workout today. I just like, no, I'm doing it tomorrow. Let me get everything done today that I need to do.
Today's a very special episode. This is my first time recording in person with one of our Fit Vegan members, and we have Dr. Daniel with us.
I really wasn't paying attention. I was eating healthy, but I don't think I was eating intentionally. And to me, there's a big difference in those two things. And so I was eating healthy foods, but I decided to eat intentionally. And that's when I looked into whole food, plant-based eating. I started doing that. And that's actually what led me into meeting you. Was when I started eating whole food, plant-based, that's when I came across the Fit Vegan program. You know, I can't remember the moment. I wish I could for the purposes of this discussion, but I came across
probably
that
a podcast or something.
I think it was a podcast, quite frankly. Yeah, I was listening to podcasts on plant-based eating. I think that probably was it. But nevertheless, that is what connected me to the whole food, plant-based program that you have. And so that took me to the next level on the whole food, plant-based eating, which not only incorporated eating intentionally, right, with a purpose, without making it hard. You don't want to make it hard. I mean, it's food, right? And you want to have a life and you want to enjoy your life. So it
can't be cooking all day.
Being more accomplished in what my nutrition really was, and then coupling that with an organized exercise regimen, because up to that point I was still pretty much just running and maybe some body weight exercises, nothing with like going to the gym. And then mindset, right? Which is the component. I mean, when it all comes down to it, that's the number one component.
Today, I have a special guest, a Fit Vegan superstar, Rebecca.
Don't you miss stuff? And I was like, I gotta be honest with you. The food I'm eating has been fantastic, flavorful, filling. I'm enjoying all the meals. I love them. It's not like you're just sitting, like people I think you're just eating salads all the time. And I'm like, the foods I eat, I was like, I love the foods I eat. So probably a couple months before I had joined, I had a couple steaks here and there within the 6 months. And it was 3 times within like a 6-month period. Every time the next day I was sicker than sick. And I was like, okay, I really have got to make a change. But I was like, don't know what to do. I can't imagine going back.
Today we're joined with a Fit Vegan superstar, Julie.
I like eating this way. These are all the foods that I love. I don't feel like I'm dieting. And I could eat this way forever. Plus, I learned, through months, I've been in the program for 6 months, and I lost every bit of weight and more in 3 months that I imagined. It was easy, and I was eating those foods that I thought were off limits. So it really does work, and it's awesome. But I just lost my train of thought, Maxime. What was
That's all right. Well, you're just basically going on about like how the process was for you to be able to not simply have like fat restrictions and things like that.
Yeah, and so it actually worked, and I didn't feel deprived, and I learned a lot of things along the way, that I really can eat like this and lose weight. I was a bit skeptical because I didn't think it would work, but I wanted to try it, and it does work. And I was eating all those foods that I was restricting before, and I was losing weight. Like, it was amazing to me. Amazing.
Yeah. Today we have a very special guest, a reoccurring guest, a Fit Vegan superstar, because as Darcy, you're Fit Vegan forever now at this point. So we have Darcy back on the podcast. Darcy, how you doing, man?
My past self, everything, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. And so it was either all in, all out. And so I had to kind of retrain myself to think, it's okay to have that meal and whatever, like if it happens, it happens, and just eat good the next meal, like whatever, it's not the end of the world. And so I've gotten very good at doing that and not just focusing on that one issue or whatever, not even saying an issue, but just that one meal.
Today we have a very special guest, a Fit Vegan superstar, Alana.
After encountering Darcy, I messaged him, and
And I asked him, like, what is the deal with this? He's like, yeah, I met this guy. I've been following him on Facebook. And then I decided, like, okay, I'm just going to try this program. And you eat a ton of vegan food. He's like, it's not fake food. It's not, you don't order pre-made food. It's just everything you can cook at home. It's not any bizarre ingredients. You get workout plans. You have an app. He's like, he helps you stay accountable. He's like, you don't show up for a workout. You hear from someone, but they're not there to kick your ass, so to speak. Like, they're there to support you, to make sure you stay on. Like, they keep you accountable in a way that, you know, someone who really cares about you keeps you accountable. You're using willpower when you're trying to just will yourself to do something that you know you should do, but maybe you're not enjoying it. Maybe you don't know why. Maybe you don't have a direction. Maybe you, like with me at first, it was like, yeah, this is going fine now, but in 6 weeks, I'm going to fall apart and this isn't going to last. When you're using willpower, your addictions and your ghosts, they're doing push-ups backstage. Like they're working out and they're getting stronger, so that when you have that weak moment, like
they're just busting through.
They're in there just to tear shit up, shit up. And I've had those moments, and oddly enough, they're when I've been most successful. I hit like a weight loss milestone or something, and then it's, you know, the old, like, it's the elephant that, you know, is pure id in my life that comes in. They're like, all right, so you've lost like 10 pounds now. I think that's a reason for cake. And you're like, like, elephants are hard to rein in, man. Like, so, yeah. And so that's still there. But with this program here, because the focus is on continuous improvement and compounding of habits, and not being perfect, but just doing better, and to be consistent and to keep going. And the compounding of those little habits becomes so big over time. So even when my elephant does show up, like, she can't trample on everything. I call her Samantha. So when Samantha comes by, like, no, it's okay. You can, whatever. I got this.
Today I am joined by a fit vegan superstar, Carrie.
I'm going to do it for Lent. Okay. Like, good Catholic girl.
Yeah.
I can do this for 40 days or whatever. And no joke, in that 40 days that I did the Engine 2 plan, which is essentially a strict plant-based diet. My cholesterol dropped 60 points. And my weight dropped about 10 pounds. And a couple of months after that, I did my second Ironman and shaved about 45 minutes off of my total time from the previous one. And I just thought, like, what more do I need? What proof do I need? What other proof do I need that things are trending in the right direction?
Today I'm joined by one of our fit vegan superstars, Barry.
We all think we're invincible. You know, if you're a bit younger, and you think, no, I feel good. I'd like to feel a little bit better. I want to strengthen myself. Whatever the reason is, or maybe you got some specific things you want to change in your life, do it earlier than later, because I've always had this rule in my life that what I do now will physically and mentally affect me in 5 years. That's a moving thing. And then you can bump that out to 10 years. So don't wait until you have a serious event. Don't wait until you can't reverse something. Make a lifestyle change for yourself, and it's not that difficult. We always manage to eat every day. Just eat a little bit better.
Today I am joined by a fit vegan superstar, Patrick, the six-pack machine.
Lost track of your question. The transformation has just been like, I feel stronger. And it was I would say it was pretty quickly. Within the first month or so, I was starting to feel better at the gym, but also had focus at the gym. So it was like, okay, and I actually have a plan. And it still took me a little while, because even though I had been going to the gym for a while, I was a little bit nervous. I was like, I'm not quite sure how to use that piece of equipment. I've seen this, but how do I modify? Life-changing in the gym. I felt so much more comfortable after a while of just like, I have a plan. I know what I'm doing. And the same with food. I have a plan. I know what I'm doing. And this is how much I eat. And I would get hungry a little bit now and then, but then, you know, Sarah would say, well, eat more vegetables. And so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I love that. So that was able to kind of fill me up a little bit more. So I was just feeling better, just stronger, feeling better with food in a pretty short amount of time.
Today I am joined by a fit vegan superstar, Faye.
But then because it being an ethical choice, like I wasn't concentrating or focusing on the health side of the food. And I would, vegan junk food started to creep in then, and meat replacements and stuff, because I like the taste of them. And I did miss like a burger or whatnot. So I guess for me, I started, I've always liked working out. I always go to different gym classes, but I don't really self-guide. I used to find the gym boring. Now I don't at all. You can come back to that one later, but I find it super satisfying now. But I would be just at a loss. So I would sign up for a class, or I went to Orange Theory for a couple of years, and I loved it. And I love the feeling of being stronger, and I love the feeling of weight work, like lifting weights. But I never really saw body composition. Like I definitely lost weight, but I never actually felt like I got strong. So I've been, then COVID hit, gyms closed, started doing a lot of home workouts, and really enjoyed when I got dumbbells, like really enjoyed them. And I actually saw more of a change, with that than I had with Orange Theory, even though I thought giving so much more effort when I was doing that.
Today we have a very special guest, a reoccurring guest. We're recording a Fit Vegan success story episode with Alexandra Paul.
Meal plans were super helpful because I'm not a cook, right? So I really liked the first couple weeks where you actually gave us recipes of what to eat, like options, like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something I never thought, by the way, that I would like to do, follow what someone was telling me. Because I think I felt, because of my disordered eating, that I didn't want anyone telling me. I'd feel restricted if someone told me what to do. But I really liked that. And I actually got a little confused when I went off into the third week, when I had to start doing, a protein here and a carb here and that kind of thing. It got me a little confused. So what I did was I downloaded all the recipes that you have on the site and kept them on my desktop so I could refer to them and just go to them. And then, I pretty much eat the same thing for breakfast. So that was easy. And then you said something in one of your talks. You said, it was on YouTube. So I don't know if it was your podcast but you said, here's the way to think about it is have tofu midday, like a block of tofu, and then a cup of beans at night, and then protein powder and the protein in the morning, and you should have it covered. So I thought, well, that's a good way to think about it.
Today we have another special guest, a reoccurring guest, Brendan Kessler.
When I started in nutrition science, if you had told me that I would have to write an article defending the health benefits of fruit, I would have said you're crazy. Because everyone certainly knows how beneficial fruit is. So there is a huge misconception, and I believe it is based on sugar.
Yeah.
So I guess, and again, trying to keep it really simple, trying to break this down in very simple ways. What fiber does is there are many benefits to fiber. One of the core benefits of dietary fiber is its ability to kind of expand in your intestinal tract. This is mainly the principle of viscosity, where it actually absorbs water. Mm-hmm. That's what kind of, when you have a really fiber-rich meal, it absorbs water, it swells in your intestinal tract, it makes you feel more full. It's physically pushing on your intestinal tract, hits a lot of those satiety things, which release various hormones. But when it does that, and kind of that principle where it leads to satiety, it's also actually trapping that sugar. And so those free sugar molecules that are there, long story short, it traps them and promotes their excretion. So the more fiber you combine with sugar, generally speaking, I'm making this very simple, but the lower kind of the overall kind of impact to your blood sugar. So the less of those free sugars are capable of easily absorbing across the intestinal membrane and into your bloodstream. So maybe one of the ways to kind of break that down.
It's basically like a little sponge coming in and soaking up some of the liquids and the sugar with it and excreting it. as it's
Exactly.
stuck. Okay.
Exactly. So if you consumed, let's say 20 grams of sugar in the form of apple juice,
yeah,
where 99% of the fiber is really completely gone. In that case, it's really almost absorbing very similar to other kind of sugar sweetened beverages. That sugar is really free. So that sugar is going to very, very rapidly absorb across the intestinal membrane and cause a pretty dramatic increase in blood sugar. When you have a whole apple that also, it may still have 15 or so grams of sugar, but it also has all of this fiber in it. And then also other things which we'll get into. That's going to delay the absorption of that. So it's going to slow the absorption of that and also promote the excretion of sugar.
Today I'm joined by a fit vegan superstar, Myra. Myra, how are you doing today?
Obviously, in the first couple weeks, you see a lot of weight drop off. And then you slowly, because your body's adjusting and you're in a calorie deficit and it's all of a sudden. And then after that, you're gradually losing a pound a week. And you grow to be comfortable with that, because I feel like people are always in this mindset that it's got to come off quickly. And it's like, sure, it could, but then you rebound, and that's exactly what you don't want. You want to be able to learn this lifestyle so that you're doing it the rest of your life so you don't gain the weight back. And I feel pretty confident that the weight won't return because of the fact that I know more about myself and how to adapt and in this mindset set of exercise and kind of just how to arrange my meals. I mean, you pay money into the program, but when I wasn't doing this program, I was doing a lot of takeout because I have 2 kids and I was like, oh, I'm too tired to make my own meals. I'm just going to buy something. And you end up spending like so much more money doing that. And now this kind of forces me to make my lunches. And now I'm like, I'm never buying my lunch ever again.
Very excited for today because we have a special guest, fit vegan superstar, where she gets back for like the second or third time. We have Matt. Matt, how you doing today?
I think I just, you're tired. You deserve a day off. One day is not going to make a difference, which very quickly could turn into 2 days. And, food too, like the snacking, I love snacks. I love food in general. And so, I remember being very tempted, and now that I feel like I feel like I understand my body and how it operates, which is a fantastic feeling. But back then I didn't. So the excuses that my brain was making, I didn't give in to it. I said to my partner, Brad, I said, remind me if I ever complain, remind me that you will never regret exercising after the fact, because I'm one of those people that after I exercise, I feel like $1,000,000. I'm happy, you'll never regret putting in the effort, and you can rest afterwards. So I had a lot of internal dialogues with myself. It's like an inner struggle some days, like an inner battle. And food too, as much as I wanted to, I didn't let myself. I don't think there were many weeks where I didn't have an adherence of 9 or 10 on my nutrition through the entire program. But oh gosh, I made excuses, but I was able to overcome them. I don't know how. I don't know where this willpower came from, but
you're committed. I think that was a big difference.
Yeah.
Today I'm joined by a very special guest, a fit vegan superstar, an original fit vegan superstar, because I just looked at when her account was created, which was November 21st, 2020. Tish, welcome back to the show. I think this is your second episode.
If I know I have to be at the gym, I have to be at the gym. But I think one thing that I've learned from being in the program initially and then learning more from you and from Sarah, sort of everything afterwards, is giving myself a little bit more forgiveness if I'm not able to make the gym one day.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, okay, I can't make it today, but can I move it to one of my rest days? Because I'm going to just take my rest day today and I'm going to be really purposeful about taking my rest day today. And then I shift that mindset. But I'm also more forgiving of myself because of the way I've sort of been, I guess, coached or trained by you guys to be, as I said, a little bit more forgiving if I don't make it for the workout in the gym, which is okay sometimes, but you put in
Yeah,
what you
which
get out of it, right? But
that's amazing to hear because, Tish 4 years ago wouldn't have said that.
by the end of the day yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just burnt. But it's also rewarding at the same time because it's progress and I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel like this is good. I'm made for this. Like, and I saw a friend of mine saw a picture of me the other day and he's like, wow, he's like, you've really put on some muscle. Like you're looking really great. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thanks. I'm like, is that a compliment? And he's like, no, it's like you've always been in good shape, but you can tell that you're putting the effort into it. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing differently? And then I just started talking about this program, and I can't believe it's been since 2020. Like that just, I didn't think it was that long, which is not
Yeah.
that long, but
Yeah. No.
so
Today I am joined by a fit vegan superstar that I got the pleasure of meeting a few weeks ago in Washington, Karen.
I had to move to a different gym because the gym I was at ran out of heavy weights for my legs. So I go to a different
Hey,
gym to do
that's
my
a
leg
good
day.
flex. That's a good flex. That's a good problem. I'm too strong for this gym.
They
More
don't have,
weights.
they didn't have heavy enough weights for my legs.
How old are you right now?
I'm 67.
Yeah, and you're
Birthday
running
in
out of
January.
weights at your gym for your legs.
Yeah. A friend of mine wanted to go hiking the other day, and it was like, oh, we're just going to do 12 miles, Well, it turned into, she's a hiking fanatic. It turned into almost 17 miles and 3,700 feet of elevation. And I'm like, I'm going to be crippled tomorrow. But I wasn't. I was strong enough to, my legs were strong enough. I was able to make it through all of that. So I just feel, I think in the past, before I started working with you, I was always nervous about throwing my back out because I have this disc thing that's going on. I was always afraid of it. I'm not as afraid of it anymore. I think I've gotten tighter. And one that Sarah had talked about, because I said, I'm nervous about doing this. She said, well, we're trying to strengthen the muscles around that area. So I now believe that that's what's happened. So I'm not as nervous about certain exercises.
Today we have another special episode, another Fit Vegan success story with one of our Fit Vegan superstars, Lori or Lexa. Lori, how you doing today?
Probably about 8 years ago, I went and had some food sensitivity done, and dairy across the board was something that I was sensitive to. And at the time, I think it was actually my gynecologist that was doing some more functional kind of things and recommended it. And the idea was you eliminate the things that you're sensitive to and then eventually bring them back in. But and the funny thing is, meat, I wasn't sensitive to anything. I could eat all the meat, but I still didn't go back to eating the meat. But because dairy was every dairy, I thought, well, I'm not ever going back to that. That just doesn't make sense. So I kind of cut the dairy out pretty easily. I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard. Really hasn't been. I just asked my friends, I'll go anywhere with you. Let's just not go to a pizza parlor. And, and I'm finding there's certain places that are now doing a little bit better job of doing some vegan pizzas, or, I know you're a Plant Strong guy. I buy his Plant Strong crusts and then just Google recipes, like some of the cashew sauces you can put on them. Man, it's amazing. And I found the easiest way, because Mexican was the other thing. I kind of like Mexican food, but as long as you have salsa and you have guacamole, you don't need cheese. You just need something gooey to hold all the stuff together. So those were the things. And then I think I just started listening to more podcasts like yours, like Rich Roll, like Plant Strong, and just learning more and more, not just my health, but the environment and the animal humanity part of it, that just really solidified for me that, you know what, I need to do this.
Today I have one of my favorite guests back on the show for I think like the third or the fourth time. We have Dr. Jade.
So the original was I had a young child at home. I gained 50 pounds with that pregnancy, and I hit a stalemate with losing the weight. And I was just starting to dive into lifestyle medicine and nutrition, so I had a lot of knowledge. I've also been an active person my whole life, like competitive swimming, point ballet, played soccer, lifted weights since high school. But I didn't have the right recipe for success. And the only times previously where I had really dialed in and lost weight and got to where I wanted to was through a lot of bad habits that a lot of people know, like restrictive eating, over-exercising, and a lot of that stemming from my poor body image and self-image from when I was younger. And I didn't want to do that again. Like I don't want to torture myself. I want to be healthy. And I wanted to do it to model that for my daughter then and to practice what I preach to my patients, because I'm going through this journey of like, I've been vegetarian my whole life pretty much. And then I became vegan. And then I was like, okay, and now I'm in lifestyle medicine. So like, it was just this whole like, how do I up level that? How do I get healthy and back in shape a bit? And then the bonus was the stuff I learned from you. I was able to pass that off to a lot of my patients.
Today we are joined by a fit vegan superstar, Dr. Jennifer Yeager.
Yeah, my kids now know that I'm going to exercise, whether they like it or not, because trust me, kids just want your undivided attention. They don't care what you need. They don't care what you want. They have needs and wants, and that's what they are focused on. So my little one will say, stop exercising. And I'll just kind of, make a joke about it or try to get them involved and do this animal flow with me. Of course, whenever you suggest something to a kid, they're more likely to not want to do it. But yeah, it's something they know that I do now. They're sort of aware that it's something that I place importance on. And I think that's all that matters, really. Yeah. My husband has really benefited from the program as well, just because the program has taught me how to do a better job of replacing that main course with something that has a decent amount of protein. The transition to a plant-based eating, in my experience, boils down to the main dish. So everyone's gonna eat grains and fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. Maybe they weren't eating as many beans before, but that's that protein, so-called protein main dish is what really needs to be completely shifted and changed. So we've all benefited. And my husband says that all the time, that sometimes I'll be hard on myself. Like it feels like kind of a slog to be the outlier eating plant-based. And yet he'll always say, but look at how much you've done for our family by doing this. Like we're all better off for it. And it's so true. Even if family functions, my like extended family is not plant-based, but I'll try to bring plant-based dishes and everybody enjoys it. And I think just showing people by example that it's not a sacrifice, it's just different.
Today we are joined by one of our fit vegan superstars, Shika.
Pretty much, 90% of the diseases I see these days are all lifestyle-based diseases. But with your program, I've actually now been able to very much better counsel my patients on the fitness part of it, or, even in the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine that I became board certified in. Number 1 pillar is nutrition. Number 2 is physical activity and training. So since I never strength trained myself or wasn't into the fitness, I would just say, walk, do whatever. And now I can specifically guide people according to their body composition or their ability. So your program has even helped me with that.
Today I am joined by a fit vegan superstar, Warner.
Getting fitter really does have an effect on your brain, clarity of mind. I feel like I've come out of a long brain fog. So there's that. And the other thing was just, I feel more
there's a sense of this isn't boasting. I'm just saying it as I feel it. There's
Yeah.
a sense of integrity that I feel has kind of returned to me in the sense that I'm keeping that vow, and the vow isn't I'm never going to fail at a meal or I'm never going to eat sugar or chocolate again. It's the big picture. This is the journey I'm on, and if I like today, for instance, I was at a gathering and I had a donut, but I knew very well that this is not my lifestyle, and I'm going to get right back on the wagon. So it's the self discipline is there, and it feels great to be able to say I'm not breaking that vow that I made. Making a vow to yourself and breaking. Here's the thing: you talked about self love the other day, that you're not on that bandwagon, but there's an element of wisdom there, where taking care of yourself, especially if you've made a vow to yourself. I mean, why would I keep a promise to others and not keep a promise to myself? What does that say about me? Does that make me? Am I thinking less of myself in terms of value?
Today I'm joined by a fit vegan superstar, Allison.
That's where my mental shift kind of happened, to where I was like, the perfection idea cracked, because I was like getting so frustrated, and I felt bad for Nate because I was kind of lashing out at him, and he was just like, what do you need? How can I support you? Like, what do you like? Where do we need to go? Like, what do we need to do? And so initially that was it was difficult. But once I figured it out, PB Fit is my best friend. I can't stand protein powders. I've tried so many, and I want to like one of them, but I can't do it. PB Fit has been my savior in this process. So lots of apples and PB Fit. The dry roasted edamame, really great snack. Really, really good for the protein. Just honestly, you just have to have like some staples. So like getting veggie sushi from Publix or wherever. Or I would get like the little spring onion ramen packets, and I'd get a block of tofu, and I'd get like my Bragg's liquid aminos, and I'd marinate my tofu, stick it, in there, and then just heat that up and eat it. And that was good. So it was certainly manageable. I don't look back and feel like, God, what an unmanageable time. What a miserable time. Like, I did it, go out to eat, and things weren't perfect. But honestly, during that time too, there were days where I was like, I'm going to do the best that I can. I probably am not going to hit my protein goals today, but I can get pretty close to my calorie goals. And that's just going to be good enough for today. And this isn't going to last forever. I have the luxury of time. So I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to keep doing my workouts.
Today we have a very special guest, a fit vegan superstar, Sophia.
I don't know how many people would experience this. I had an actual withdrawal. There was a physiological reaction from the cardio events. There is a real runner's high. Now, if you enjoy running and you enjoy cycling, there's a real high that comes with that like you get this endorphin kick. You feel really good. You get a great sweat on. Your heart rate goes to the roof. You come in, you get clean. You feel like I really accomplished something. And that becomes part of your identity, like what you actually, it's not just like some people I think feel like I have to do this because this is what's going to help me lose weight. For me, it was like, that was part of what made me feel good. It made me feel accomplished and, type A personality. And so taking that away took away my feel good feeling. And it really, the first few weeks I was like in withdrawal from those experiences.
Yeah, which is funny to hear because most people hate cardio, right? And you're just like, no, I'm addicted to this feeling, and it's hard to not do cardio. But when I look at your graph, which I have pulled up here, like it's generally pretty much just been like a straight line down since we started doing less, since we started being more efficient with the workout and really focusing on like progressive overload versus like variety and kind of changing it up all the time. So obviously you went through this phase where there's like some withdrawal symptoms from it, but then when did your brain kind of switch of like, oh shit, this is working?
It was something I never ever thought would have happened, and it's something I still struggle with on like this week. I mean, I'm way far through the program and I still have a hard time with this. I saw my weight fluctuation on a day-to-day basis, and I saw that the day of and after my cardio events. So my coach gave me one hard run day and one hard cycle day. That's what I got. I got like 2 VO2 max efforts a week. That was it. Yeah. And the day of that effort and the day after that effort, my weight went up. And it would take a couple days after those efforts for my weight to resettle. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? How is my weight increasing? It was completely my body was acting in a way that was completely counterintuitive to what I'd always believed, which is do these huge efforts on the weekend, eat all of this food on the weekend to enjoy all of the huge effort that you put out, and like you will end up weighing less. And it was like, no, my huge efforts like seem to slow my metabolism.
Today we have another Fit Vegan success story. I'm joined by Fit Vegan superstar Shona.
A huge, massive shift. I mean, before, even on the days off, you do 2 days of workout, then you have a Wednesday off. At least I do. And then Thursday, Friday workout, then you get the weekend off. On the days I'm off, and I said this yesterday on the weekly talk, I start to feel a bit itchy to do something because I'm not doing something, so I do walk. But every now and then I'll stop and just do a few wall push-ups, or I'll do a few squats, or I'll do something because I feel like I feel like I want to be doing something. Not necessarily a full workout, but something, and that is so not me. Like, so
you're just doing random push-ups throughout your walk. That's a new version of you.
If I'm in the house, or if I'm walking, I mean, where we live, there's a lot of really large Douglas fir trees, etc. So I can just stop by the side of a road and just do some push-ups against a tree, or do some squats when I'm standing at the fence petting horses or something, so. Or just go up and down on my toe, work the calf muscle. So I take opportunities to do just my own body weight bearing exercise on my days off.
Today is a Fit Vegan success story, and I'm joined with a Fit Vegan superstar, Erica.
Sometimes it took me a little longer to get there. In the summer, I get up, I go, I do my workout, I do my walk, and I'm done. The winter, it's a little longer. It's a little, again, I'm retired, so I don't have to be up at a certain time like, a lot of people, which maybe is not such a good thing. And I'm not really good about, saying, okay, I'm going to set the alarm and be up at 7:00 every morning when it's dark and cold and whatever. So sometimes I would drag a little bit, but I don't know. I just kept telling myself, I've got to do it. I've got to do it. Go do it and get it over with. If nothing else, go and get it over with. And then once you start doing it, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
It's just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I feel like there shouldn't be any guilt to it taking a bit longer for you to go and work out. Because hey, it's raining outside in LA right now. This morning it was freezing cold. I think I stayed in bed an extra 45 minutes before I was like, gotta go do my leg workout. But ultimately, as long as you do it, it doesn't matter how long it took you to get there.
Exactly. That's what I figured. Getting it done is the win.
Today, I'm joined by one of our Fit Vegan superstars, Harvey.
I don't like to give myself any excuses for not doing something that's going to get me to the goal. When I stop and I want to make a decision that is not in my best interest, I always ask myself, I have this awareness, is this going to help my long-term goal to live a long, healthy life and be there for my grandchildren? Is doing this going to help me get to my long-term goal?
Today, I am joined by one of our Fit Vegan superstars, Lamont.
I would say consistency, also following the workouts, following the workout plan. It's one thing you go to the gym, and I worked with a trainer before, and we did a lot of high intensity interval training. I just didn't see the results. Like, I lost weight and that was perfect, but I just didn't see the types of results I'm seeing now. I feel a lot stronger. And I guess one of the huge turning points for me is I've never been able to do pull-ups, wide grip pull-ups, and going through the program, now I can do several sets, and I could just go and whip out pull-ups anytime that I want to, and that's been amazing for me. Like, maybe that's not a big milestone for a lot of people, but the fact I couldn't do one when this started, and now I can do, I think it's 4 sets of 8. I can easily complete that. I could probably do more, and I can end that 4 sets of 8 with a strict pull-up. So hanging from the floor, pulling up, very strict. And so, I mean, that to me is just flat out amazing. And so I kind of, that's, out of all of it, that might be my huge accomplishment. And once again, that may not be a big deal to somebody else, but it's a damn big deal to me.
Today is a Fit Vegan success story with Dr. Lori Marbas.
Just listening to your body, but for me, it's just like this morning, I ran 5 miles this morning, and I was like, I got meetings, I got a lot of patients. It'd be so much easier if I didn't have to. It was like, Lori, just get your shoes on and get your butt out the door. If you only run 1 mile, at least you started. Well, I ran the 5 miles, right? So it was just getting out there, just getting started. I think the key is just getting started and just do it, even if it's a little bit, right?
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed all these incredible nuggets of wisdom from the guests that we've had on the show and the Fit Vegan success stories from members that we've been able to help transform their lives, their body, and their health throughout the years. There was a lot in there. And so what I'd like to encourage you to do as we kind of wrap up this episode, again, this has been our biggest project in terms of an episode. We've been working on this for a month because imagine we have to review some of the clips, grab the best moments so that we can bring you the best clips possible from every single interview. What I'd love for you to take away from this is, one, if you aren't subscribed to the channel on audio, be sure to subscribe. If you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe so you get notified when new podcast comes out, because we have many incredible guests coming along for the rest of this year. And we have incredible trips planned for next year of guests that we'll get to interview in person and just go a lot more in depth. I plan on making the podcast longer so that we can dive deeper into specific subject versus kind of being rushed into like a 45-minute episode, because a lot of times there's so much more that I want to be able to unpack with guests, but we're kind of limited in terms of attention span and the booking. But I've learned my lesson. Many of you have requested longer episodes, and so if you aren't subscribed, be sure to subscribe. If you're listening on audio, if you leave a 5-star review to the show and leave a note, it really helps the podcast grow, because when new people come, they can see that it's a show that is valuable. And ultimately, I'm going to be upfront. It is a numbers game. The more downloads, the more views we have, the more I can go and get bigger guests on the show. And there's many incredible people that I love to have on the show, but I just don't have the numbers to interview them yet. We are getting close to that level, but we're not there yet. And so having more views, more downloads, more reviews helps me to go to these guests and be like, hey, this will be worth your time to be on this show. And so, your help and support is very appreciative in that quest of interviewing those bigger guests and being able to provide you all with more value. And then lastly, if there's something that really connected with you from this podcast, the whole purpose of this podcast is to help you, serve you on your journey of health and fitness and body composition on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And so if you've heard something that really resonated with you, I invite you to take action on that thing today, right? Because motivation, inspiration goes away real quick. And so if there's something that really connected with you, whether you heard someone say a piece of advice or a book that they recommended or an action that they took or a new principle, they wrote a note and put it on their fridge, whatever it may be, I invite you to take action on that thing today, because if not, you'll be left like the majority of the world where you know a lot of cool shit, but you don't have the cool life. If you want to have an incredible life, it comes from taking action. And so when you learn something new, implementing it is the thing that will actually drive value in your life and improve the quality of your health, of your fitness, or relationship, and of your life. But if you just keep the information in your head and you do nothing with it, it's just a cool thing that you can regurgitate to other people around you, but it won't actually improve the quality of your life. And if you're spending the time to listen to the show and to want to improve yourself, you might as well take the action, because you're already investing all this time into it. So get the result, get the outcome from it by taking action. All right. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, very excited for another year to celebrate 5 years. Next year is incredible. I can't believe it's already been 4 years of recording episode. I just want to say massive thank you to every single one of you for all the support throughout the years. Again, this wouldn't be possible without every single one of you. It wouldn't be possible to do Fit Vegan coaching without your support and every single one of you. So I appreciate all of you and thank you for your support, because one thing that I don't know if everyone knows this, but every single month I donate money to cancer patients directly. I don't go through an organization, because I want to make sure they get 100% of the funds. And so growing this podcast, growing Fit Vegan Coaching, allows me to donate more money to cancer patients to support them in their healing journey, whether it's with cancer treatment bills, whether it's with, rent, mortgages, buying healthy food, whatever it may be. It makes me feel so good to do that every single month. And every time that I do the donation, I write that it's on behalf of the Fit Vegan family. And so thank you for your help in helping me create that impact and creating in the fulfillment in the mission that I'm on. And I appreciate you all. And I will see you on the next episode next Tuesday. Bye, everyone.